Happy Eating Disorder Awareness Week. So, yes, if you aren't aware, this week, starting February 22nd, is National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is put on annually every year by the National Eating Disorder Association, otherwise known as NEDA. So, in order to celebrate, I'm doing a lot of different things, one of which is releasing a series of infographics about eating disorders, body image, and body positivity all throughout the week. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about my own story of eating disorder recovery, since I feel like our stories sometimes kind of get lost in the silence and stigma that our culture has around eating disorders. You can say you have an eating disorder or even talk about it a little bit, but telling your full story is often not really done unless maybe you're reading an eating disorder memoir. And as also somebody who isn't in the norm of people who have eating disorders, I felt like it's even more important to raise awareness. Since I am not thin, people don't assume that I have an eating disorder, and I'm not somebody who people would expect to have one based on our stereotypes of who gets eating disorders. But eating disorders aren't only for people who are thin or of a certain size. Eating disorders don't discriminate based on size and aren't based on how much you weigh. You can be any weight and have an eating disorder. So I think it's really important to talk about these things, especially when you're part of a group of people who are marginalized within the eating disorder movement. So that's why I'm here today. So, eating disorders often are a result of some prior trauma and are used as kind of like a coping mechanism in order to allow you to work through that pain. And that is the case for me, actually. In terms of the other facets of my story, some of them are typical. I developed my eating disorder when I was about 12 years old, almost 13, but about 12. I was in the seventh grade at the time, so middle school, and I was experiencing a lot of problems at school, actually. I was being bullied. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had actually moved schools that year and was having a really hard time adjusting. And it was really, really difficult day to day. And I also had gone through a sexual assault experience about 6 months before all of this happened. And that was also kind of weighing heavy on my heart, although I at the time was kind of choosing to ignore and trying to forget about it as much as I could. But the trauma was definitely something that I was actively experiencing at the time. And since all of this was going on and I didn't really have any sort of an outlet, I wasn't in therapy and I wasn't really able to talk to anybody about it, or so I thought. So I ended up turning to food, and that kind of became like my source of comfort and coping. I had stopped having a bedtime. So when I was about 12, my parents had stopped instituting a time that I had to go to sleep on school nights. And basically, I could stay up as late as I wanted. And I often did. I usually stayed up till probably about 11 or 11:30 on most nights, and my mom went to bed at about 9, so I was up by myself for a good 2 hours. And so I ended up just kind of experimenting, and I started to binge basically. I remember when I was maybe about 13 was when it started to get really bad, and I started to do it a lot more frequently. And it just kind of became a pattern. Like it was just kind of something that I did, and I didn't really think about it a whole lot. It was just kind of like, this is what it is, and this is how I live my life. And there wasn't a whole lot of thought. It became a very passive process, and it wasn't something that I really even needed to think about a lot. And that continued for a few years, and it got worse at some points and then it waned at others, just kind of depending on what was going on in my life at the time. And then when I was about 18 and I had gone off to college, that's when I really realized that I had a problem, because I was by myself for the first time. I didn't obviously live with anyone when I was in college. And, well, not obviously, but I lived in like a single dorm and, like I wasn't at home like I was all the other years of my life. And, since I also had free reign access to food, basically at any time I wanted, I was really able to go crazy, which wasn't good, but it did make me realize that I had a problem. And I kind of worked through it from there. I was about close to 19 when I kind of admitted it to myself, and then I was already in therapy and stuff. So I basically just kind of added it to the work that I was already doing on myself. And, like the road since then, which is maybe like a little less than a year and a half, it's actually been really good. Like, I haven't found the process to be that challenging. In the beginning, it definitely was. Like, probably the first 6 months, it was really hard. And it was really difficult to adjust to trying to, like, have some sort of a normal relationship with food and, like, a lifestyle. But over time, I ended up adjusting to it. And there's still like certain things that I work on and struggle with and whatnot. But it's been a lot smoother since that point. Like, kind of once I kind of was able to kind of come to terms with everything and figure out like how to shed a lot of the emotional stuff going on that contributes to that state of mind, I was able to move past it a lot more effectively. Although, like I said, it's still, it's not perfect. It's something that, I definitely actively think about. And yeah, so I guess that's like my story. I'm going to try to get this up tonight so that y'all can participate in the Adios ED Twitter chat, which I am very excited to be participating in. It's hosted by Adios Barbie, which is an organization that is an intersectional body positive nonprofit. It's not an official nonprofit, but they operate like one. And so the whole point is like adios eating disorders. um, so yeah, so y'all should come. So I'm gonna try to get it up. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight, and hopefully I will see you there.